Jai Jagannath, Radhe Radhe. We are continuing with Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, from verse 40. So this is 39. Just to remember what Krishna was talking about. He refers to the Sankhya of the distinction, the enumeration between the kshetra, which is made of the material elements, and the kshetriya, which is the Atman, the Jivatman, which is the of the same quality of Brahman. Now listen to the perspective of Buddhi Yoga. Now, Buddhi Yoga is not a title of a chapter in Bhagavad Gita, but it's the entire system, because any approach to the science of Bhagavad Gita requires some intelligence and correct understanding. So we go from verse 40. Which is very encouraging. Neha Bikraman Nasusti Pratyavayo na vidyate. Svalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. On this path, you hear here means in the understanding of Bhagavad Gita, Buddhi Yoga. No effort goes to loss, and there is no failure nor harm. Nasa pratyavaya, it's the same. It's the something that is against. Means there is no diminution, no harm, no bad effect, no position. And also, we can expand the meaning by saying that there is no obstacle. So here we can make a connection with the other interesting verse from the Bhakti Shastra that is saying, Haitukya Pratihataya Yatnam Suprasidati. The Buddhi Yoga has no obstacles, is unconditional and uninterrupted, because everything can be used in the Buddhi Yoga. Even difficulties, apparent failures, whatever, even bad things can be used in the best possible way. This is also commented by Narada Muni in the first canto of the Bhagavata Purana, when he's talking to Vyasa about his own experience when he was a child. So when his mother died by snake bite, he took it as a blessing. So he felt he was free, and he started to go around and to travel to holy places and to engage in sadhana. So of course, when your mother dies, that's not something to celebrate. It's definitely a tragedy, an obstacle, and a bad thing from the material point of view. But if you consider everything as an opportunity, a positive opportunity, we do our best, and then we move on. So even if there is something that appears to have gone wrong, it is actually an opportunity for us to think, to meditate, reflect on how we can use this situation for a better um, for a better service. We call it service. We can call it devotional service. We can call it service to the universal community. You can call it dharma, but it's the same. It's yoga. It's the engagement that Krishna is talking about. So, for example, when my place was practically destroyed by the cyclone, it was not funny. But that was, in a sense, it was an opportunity for me to move on and do something else, which is more useful for the cause of Dharma and Vidya. So, any comment, question from this part, this verse? No.
No.
Everything is clear. Maybe
Mhm.
it's a little difficult to digest, but it's,
Yeah, like
yeah.
understanding wise, okay, but following wise,
Exactly. We need to bridge from theory to practice. But it is actually, it is a fact, it is demonstrated. If we engage on the proper path of Buddha Yoga, every little step, every little effort remains forever, because that is something we can carry with us in the next life. We cannot carry homes or bank accounts or or other stuff like that, but we definitely carry our progress in realization in Atma Vidya and in Bhakti and in yoga, that we definitely carry with us. Okay, gradually we practice. We start with the sadhana bhakti, then we get to the raganuga. Slowly.
uh-huh.
Okay, 41. Oh, interesting. Vyavasayatmika buddhir eke hakurunandana bahusakti hyanantascha bahusaka hyanantascha buddhayo vyavasainam. This is also a very interesting verse. O beloved descendant of Kuru, the intelligence or understanding that is constantly focused on the Atman is the only true one in this world. Those who do not concentrate on the soul disperse their intelligence in innumerable minor ramifications. Another level of meaning of this verse is very simple, very basic, which means that we need to focus on what we're doing. We need to pursue one way, one path with determination, with concentration. We cannot just, jump here and there, just, picking the cherries, from wherever we go. So we think that these things are good for us. We need some focus. Of course, we need to examine each and every piece of knowledge or teaching or understanding or realization or sadhana practice, whatever. We need to examine them carefully to see if they're suitable for us or not. But we need to focus on the actual purpose of life. Many people think, because they identify with the material body, they think that we can think about the Atman when we become old, because then it will be the time for that, so that's the time when we are going to think about that. Unfortunately, there are two problems with that logic. Problem number one, we don't really know when we're going to die. So, when our number is called, probably there will not be much time to do anything else. And second thing, when we are really old, our brain is not working in the same way. So if we have not attained a good balance, a good understanding when we are old, we are probably more likely to be, what to say, senile, as they say. It's a fact. When you get old, the brain is working less. So the idea of the Buddhi Yoga is to rise from the material Buddhi to the spiritual Buddhi. That is a spiritual intelligence that goes beyond the physical brain. If we do that, then even when we get old, we are not going to lose the consciousness. Maybe we will not remember all the names and, we'll be not so good in mathematics, but at least the consciousness that is beyond the physical brain will remain, and that will be our guiding light, because we have experienced that. So it's a direct realization that doesn't require so much brain activity. So any question about this? Any elaboration?
Uh, yeah, I've heard like one meaning of it is you need to focus on one deity, like one Ishtadevta. Is it true, or can
Yes,
we take it that way?
yes, yes. In fact, it is. I sometimes I make this example. If you want to cook a pot of rice, okay, you have to keep the pot on the fire. You cannot, keep moving the pot around and, changing pots and pouring the rice in another pot and then putting it back, because that is very dispersive. So when we talk about Ishtadeva, we are talking about bhakti. We are not talking about the religious duties of the dvijas, because the religious duties of the dvijas are for the benefit of society. So we have to offer our support to all the devas. Like Krishna said in the third chapter in the Karma Yoga, we say actually, because we didn't get there yet. He said in the Karma Yoga that the human beings and the devas who are in charge of the management of the material universe need to support each other, to feed each other, to work together. The devas in charge of the material manifestation are material forms of God. Now, regarding the spiritual forms of God that are directly Swayam, Swayam Rupa, means that they are directly God, and their form is totally transcendental. There is no birth or death, because even when the avatar appears to take birth, it is through consciousness only. It's not a material body. So when we focus on our Ishtadeva in bhakti, and bhakti includes tantra and yoga, we have to focus, So, for example, when you start a sadhana, you have to focus on the particular Ishtadeva, particular deva, which can be Vishnu, Krishna, Shiva, Shakti, Shri Ram, but it has to be one transcendental form, and you chant the mantra. So when you chant the mantra, when you repeat the mantra, you have to focus on that mantra only, because in that way you can shape a vigraha of your Ishtadeva in your mind. And this is called mantra siddhi. And this is called the Siddha Deha. The Siddha Deha is us, but we are installing the Vigraha of our Ishtadeva, of the deity, in the heart of our spiritual body. So we need to work on it. We cannot make focus on many different deities. Of course, we still remember that, for example, Krishna is also Sri Ram, is Vishnu. We can meditate on that. We can meditate on all the avatars and so on. But we still have to meditate on one particular form and one main mantra. In this way, the shape of the mantra vigraha becomes very clear and very quickly. Now, this mantra siddhi, usually the Tantra and Agama, the Tantras are explaining that it takes a lot of repetitions. Something like 300,000 or more. This means a lot of focusing on one Ishtadeva. Then what happens? When you have completed that sadhana and you have attained the proper level of realization in the sadhana to that particular form of God, then you can also change your Ishtadeva, in the sense that you expand the form, because the spiritual form doesn't have material limitations. So you practically add another dimension to the vigraha that you already have installed. So you can see, for example, that in the vigraha of Krishna that you have installed in your mind through the sadhana specifically for Krishna, you can see Vishnu. You can see that Krishna is Vasudeva, like Krishna will say, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Samahatma Sudurvama. So Vasudeva means omnipresent. Vishnu is everywhere. So the vigraha that you are shaping in your mind, because it's made of subtle matter, subtle material elements, doesn't have the same limitations of the gross material elements. So you can actually have this vigraha of your Ishtadeva that contains also other vigrahas. And not like, these Russian dolls, like a multi-dimensional form, which is actually the actual form of God. I don't know if it is clear.
Yeah,
okay, good. Because it's difficult to understand. I totally agree that it is difficult to understand, because most people they are they should start by concentrating on one specific form and then expand. We cannot start with many forms, because that is confusing. It's confusing. Like Arjuna will say, when Arjuna later on asks Krishna how we should meditate on you, and what is Krishna doing? Krishna is showing the universal form. And the universal form is all the forms together in one spot. So it's very multidimensional. But Arjuna gets confused. He says, whoa, what is that? I can't, I'm disturbed. My mind is disturbed. I cannot focus. So, he asks Krishna to show the form of Vishnu. Form of Vishnu with Chaturbhuja Vishnu is easier to contemplate than a multidimensional form of God. And already when he sees the Chaturbhuja Vishnu, Arjuna starts to get relaxed. But then he asks Krishna. Actually, he doesn't ask Krishna. It's Krishna. I think it's Krishna himself who changes from the Chaturbhuja to the two-armed, the human-like form of Krishna. And Arjuna says, now I'm feeling very much comforted. I'm feeling so much better because it's so much easier to focus on one form that we can relate to. And this is the key of the bhakti. Krishna will say, Bhaktya mama vijanati, yavanyas chasmi tattvataha. Anyone can know me really only through bhakti. Bhakti is easier to develop when we focus on one specific form of God that we feel we can relate to more easily. And that is why we are choosing our Ishtadeva. You understand the mechanics, the dynamic here. So it's better
Yes.
we focus on one form only, whatever it is. As long as it's authentic. Because, it's true that God is everywhere and everything, but we cannot invent a form of God and worship the focus and meditate on this form of God if it is not, authentic. Like, for example, if we meditate on Krishna with horns and a tail, that's that's not authentic. So, or Krishna is white, for example. I'm always a bit annoyed when I see all these pictures and calendars and Krishna is white. Why they make Krishna white? All the shastras repeat Krishna is black. Because people think that black is bad, so they think that when you insist to meditate on Krishna as as Shyam, Shyama Sundar, black, they think you're racist and you think Krishna is bad because he's black, but they are the problem because they think that black is bad, but black is beautiful. Jagannath is black and he's beautiful. Mother Kali is black and she's beautiful. Krishna is black and he's beautiful. There's no racism there. And then also sometimes, especially during the festivals, this pandal vigrahas, sometimes the artist becomes a little bit, what to say, creative, imaginative. I've seen, baby Ganesh, newborn baby Ganesh, which is like, what? Ganesh was never a baby, when Ganesh was created from the what to say. Some people say chandan, the sandalwood paste, from the body of Parvati. When she went for bath, she removed this ubha, this ubha layer on the skin when you take bath, So Parvati took all this ubha and she shaped a son, a boy, but the boy was not a baby, So as soon as Parvati shaped Ganesh, she told him, okay, now go outside the door and stand guard so nobody will come in. So how can she say something like that to a newborn baby who cannot even stand, who cannot even talk, who cannot, they make these pandas, they think they're being nice and clever and cute. They put this, 2 days old Ganesh, just newborn, what? Or Ganesh with eyeglasses. Why you should get wear eyeglasses? What? He's losing his eyesight or what? And sometimes I saw one Ganesh, because Ganesh is, it's very popular and he has a big sense of humor, so he doesn't get angry now. But I saw these Pandal Vigrahas, like one Ganesh dressed like a cricketer. Like, okay, Ganesh plays cricket. I don't think so. But, this is the problem, that sometimes we meditate on an Istadeva without following the shastra. Without following a genuine guru, we just think we can project whatever we want, and we get these weird ideas about Krishna, about Shiva, about Mother Goddess, about Shira, So, it's good to focus on one Vigraha on Istadeva, but we need to make sure that that form is genuine, it's authentic, which, we have to verify by Guru and Shastra and Sadhu, especially Guru and Shastra. Guru is difficult to find, but at least we can get the Shastra. So that's the idea. Okay, does it answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So we go on 42. Okay. Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vipaschita vedavada rata partha nanyad astiti vadina nanyad asti iti vadina. O son of Pritha, those who do not have a full understanding preach or recite Vadanti. What to say? Pravadanti. They keep talking. They preach, recite, repeat, and everything. With many flowery words. Pushpitam vacham. And those who are attached to the letter of the Vedas are unable to recognize anything else. Wow, this is heavy because it gives a picture of people who are just practicing mechanically, and they're attached to poetry more than to understand. They don't care so much to understand what the Shastra are saying. And this is a very widespread habit that people, even regarding Bhagavad Gita, people recite Bhagavad Gita. You ask them, what did you recite? What is the meaning? They don't know. They don't care. They just repeat, Prabhadanti. They recite, they preach. But they have no connection with the meaning of the text they're reading. They have no idea. So when Krishna is saying very clearly many times we have to give up ahankara and mamatva, and they are even using the recitation of the Bhagavad Gita as to reinforce their ahankara and mamatva. What is the point? What is the point? So when they are, if they're attached to the letter of the Vedas, Like, they give so many rules, so many restrictions, but they don't understand that the rules and restrictions are the requirements in the traditional, we can say orthodox Vedic practices are actually meant to be adjusted according to Desha Kalapatra, but they don't understand that. So in the end, we have people who are consider themselves Brahmins who become professional reciters and professional priests, and they go through the motions, they go through the rituals, they repeat, recite the verses, the rigs, the hymns of the Rig Veda, and all the mantras and the bija mantras and mula mantras and the kilaka and everything, but they don't understand the juice of it, the actual point of it. So they don't recognize anything else. They don't bother. They are not interested. This is reciting Bhagavad Gita, reciting the Devi Mahatmyam, reciting the Rudra. You ask them at the end, what does that mean? They don't understand. Then we also have, mispronunciation, lack of proper dhyan, meditation on the meaning of the rituals and everything. So it's this verse is for them. It means that they're not doing it right. They're doing it wrong. Vedavada Ratha. Some people say that in this verse Krishna is condemning the Purva Mimamsa, the Karma Kanda, all the rituals and everything. This is not true. This is not true. Krishna is not condemning the Vedas. He's condemning people who are attached to the superficial recitation, the superficial practice of going through the motions mechanically, and they're just interested in the technical parts, like the metrics, the proper, all the types of pronunciation and everything. Pronunciation is important, but it should not be more important than the meaning. So we have so many people who are great scholars in Sanskrit, but they're not pandits, like Krishna is saying in Gita. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihasini Suni Chaiva Swapakicha Pandita Samadarshina. These are the pandits, not those who can, give you, 12 different ways of metrics to chant the Rig Veda mantras. So, I don't know. This is what I understand from this verse. Any elaboration from your side?
So is it uh, like, is it only referring to this, or like, in Upanishads also, if we see, there are contradicting uh, terms used to explain the Brahman. Uh, is
No,
it that also flowery
yes.
language?
Listen, yes, in a sense. The point is, there is no contradiction. There is apparent contradiction.
Mhm.
Apparent contradictions in the Shastra, in the real shastra, genuine shastra, not in things that people write just because they want to write something. I'm talking about the actual shruti. Okay. Apparent contradictions in the shruti are meant to give us different perspectives so that we get a multi-dimensional understanding. So the contradictions are the apparent contradictions are ways to help our mind to do some exercise, some stretching, and at some point the walls will come down, so our perspective will become much larger. Now if you want, maybe next time you can make a compilation of these contradictions, and then we can go through them as an exercise, because I am sure until now, whatever apparent contradictions I found in the Shruti, they can very easily be reconciled with a wider perspective, multidimensional approach. So the point is that, of course, if people remain superficial and they're just attached to the way that the words that are materially describing the transcendental reality, then we get a little complicated. Now, one of the biggest examples that come to my mind, more than the Upanishads, is the famous Vishnu Sahasranam. The Vishnu Sahasranam is 1,000 names of Vishnu from the Bhagavata Purana, and it's given by Bhishma to Yudhishthira. When Yudhishthira is asking Bhishma, who is going to die, what one should do to become purified, from all bad things. So Bhishma starts, and Vishnu Sahasranam is very is beautiful, one of the best pieces of literature in the shastra, and it's also mentioned by Adi Shankar in his Bhaja Govinda. So he's mentioning the Bhagavad Gita and the Vishnu Sahasranam, because they're both, sufficient in themselves to understand the science of God. So in the Vishnu Sahasranam we find a lot of names, and each name has a meaning. And there are also groups of names that seem to be more or less contradicting each other, but they're not. They're just expanding the meaning in a multidimensional approach, multidimensional model. We can go through them, maybe when we finish the Gita, if we are still alive, we can go through the Vishnu Sahasranam, and this is very interesting, Or we can also have a meeting about the Vishnu Sahasranam as well. We don't need to wait to finish the Gita. But does this answer your question?
Yes, partly. Yeah, probably. We'll have on discussing on those like within same verses. Sometimes, like in Isha Upanishad, also we see that it is within, it is without, it is far, it is near. So those things probably we can have another.
Oh, definitely. Yes, she's Upanishad. Sadhurega. Yeah, it's very, very far and very near. It has no hands, but still it can accept. This is like the concept of Nirguna and Saguna. Okay. Now, Nirguna and Saguna seem to be the biggest contradiction of all. Like if you want to have an example of contradiction, that's the main one. So people who don't.
So, can we?
Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry.
No, no. Say.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, like, sometimes we see practitioners of different sampradaya or paths, they stick to, like, they'll pick one verse, okay, it is written here. So if
Exactly.
something opposing comes, they will deny. So can we
That's
put into this category of verse that
exactly.
they are
That is exactly what I was going to say next.
okay?
The point is that all the different so-called schools of thought, like Shuddha, Dvaita, 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 Vishishta, Advaita, and whatever. If you just see the names, they're all meant to open our mind and to integrate all these perspectives to get a larger perspective. And Chaitanya is famous, for it has been labeled as Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. Achintya Bheda Abheda means it's inconceivable by the material mind because we are still thinking in materially dualistic terms. Either this or that. This is not working. This is a typical symptom of a materialistic mind. Now, the problem is that this sectarianism in the various schools of Vedanta has been started in Kali Yuga. And it has been made even more sectarian by colonial ideology. Now, if you study the philosophy in the West, okay, you go to the university, you choose a major in philosophy. It's not philosophy. It's history of the philosophical speculations of a number of people. And each one is opposed to the others. So you go to study philosophy university and you come out from this, with a PhD in stupidity. Because you have to conclude that reality doesn't exist. Truth doesn't exist. Because so many different people said so many different things about truth and reality that, if they're all equally valid, they're all equally, you can just pick and choose one, and then stick to it. That's stupid. And this is exactly the criticism that Krishna Chaitanya offered to the sannyasis from the Madhvacharya Mati Nudupi. He basically told them, your problem is that you are too attached to the doctrine that your guru, your acharya, has given you. You cannot see you cannot see the big picture. And so this happens because we have a very limited materialistic mentality. We evaluate everything according to our material way of thinking that has big limitations. Like, for example, I found that the Madhva, doctrine is saying that, it's directly contradicting Bhagavad Gita and all the other shastra, is saying that there are different types of Atma, different types of Jiva. There are Nitya Baddha Jiva, and never going to become liberated because their nature is material. What? So the Atma is material. Nature of the Atma is material limitation. It's crazy. Now, if you want to reconcile this contradiction, and you want to, give Madhva the benefit of the doubt, you can reconcile these statements, weird statement, by saying that there are people whose mind is, so the Atma in the sense of the mind. Like Krishna also sometimes uses the word Atma to indicate the mind. Because Atma basically means self. So if we identify with the mind, we see the Atman as a self. The mind as an Atman, mind as a self. So we can conclude that if Madhvacharya was a real, actually realized soul, Sthita Prajna, he was talking about the mentality of materially embodied Jivatmas that continue to identify themselves with material nature, with material elements, with the mind. And as long as they remain in that delusional state, they will never attain moksha. But that is the nature of the mind. But the nature of the mind is constantly changing. We can change it. So, these so-called Nityabadhas are not really Nityabadhas. They're, relatively Nityabadhas. It's the same way like the Devas are called Amaras, immortal. They're not immortal. The Devas of the higher planets, they live a very long life. Brahma lives a very long life. Brahma has the longest life of all the material Devas in this universe. Yet, he dies. So, it's not immortal. At the end of his 100 years, Brahma dies. So, we call them Amaras. Yeah, Amaras compared to us, of course, Brahma will still be there after 100 of his years, and each year is 365 kalpas, which means a day of Brahma, and a day of Brahma, a kalpa is 1,000 Mahayugas, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not known for my mathematical skills, but I think that that's 1,000 cycles of Mahayugas. So in each Mahayuga, we have pralayas. So, for example, human beings and the Earth planet gets destroyed practically at every end of Kalpa. So wow. Because Brahma goes to sleep. So when Brahma goes to sleep, all the planets are withdrawn. The only planets that remain are very, very high planets and very few. I think just Brahmaloka, and even all the bunch, the team of devas, the universe gets a new batch of devas and saptarishis every manvantara. There are 54? 14. I think 14 manvantaras in one day of Brahma. So even before the end of the day of Brahma, 14 times you have 14 different batches of devas, because the previous ones were dead. But we still call them Amaras, So when I say that the contradictions must be, can be reconciled, should be reconciled, I am talking about observing the statements under the different approaches, different perspectives, but always in the light of Dharma and Vidya. This is why we need to study. We cannot just rely on our, common sense. Because the common sense is not sufficient. Logic is not sufficient. It's like when you see, I think you've seen them. There are some pictures, some drawings that have two very different meanings, but you cannot immediately see both. Usually you see only one. Like, for example, there is this very famous drawing that is showing an old lady, but if you look at it a different way, you can see a very young and elegant, beautiful young lady. So what do you see, the old one or the young one? Or sometimes maybe you've seen this other one. There is a drawing of you can see both a horse head or a toad or frog. So a horse is very different from a frog. But it's about how you look at it. You can see both of them at the same time. I don't know if maybe I will put one of these pictures in the thumbnail for the video, so maybe it can be useful. This is called a paradigm shift. When the walls of our mind fall down and we overcome duality. How many times Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita we need to drop duality. Nirdvandva. Nirdvandva means just drop duality. Because duality in the sense of material duality is ignorance, is the biggest obstacle. Why ahankara and mamatva are based on duality? They're the root of ignorance because they're based on duality. Means, if I am happy, I don't care if other people are suffering. So, I am different from the other people. I am me and the other people are something else. This is mine and that is not mine. But this is the Asura mentality. We'll see chapter 16, Daivasura Sampada. The Asuras don't see the unity of being. And this is why they're called Daityas. The name Diti, who is the mother of the Asuras, the Daityas, Diti means to divide. Dvitiya, Diti, Dviti. Diti is this is the name of the mother of the Asuras because the Asuras see the duality. Their life is based on duality. So if we overcome duality, but at the same time we accept Yogamaya, we see both the trick and the reality. Because we have left duality behind. We have overcome duality. We can see that Krishna is at the same time the Supreme Brahman and our child, our lover, our friend, our teacher. This is the opposite of duality. You understand? So, this is how you overcome the apparent contradictions. This looks like a big contradiction. How can the Supreme Brahman be your son, your child? It's impossible. Again, as I was saying before, the contradictions between the concept of Nirguna and Saguna. Some people are blabbering away, blah, blah, blah. Advaita, no, Advaita, no, we don't want the Saguna Brahman. That's stupid, because Saguna Brahman is the same like Nirguna Brahman. How can you be Advaita if you insist on duality? How can you be non-dualistic if you think that there is a duality between nirguna and saguna? Just tell me that. You know, they don't know how stupid they sound. You know, the point is that the nirguna term refers to the fact that God is not limited by material qualities. The gunas in material life are based on duality. You know, sattva is not tamas. You know, rajas is not the sattva. So it's something that is and something that is not. Sat, asat. Okay. You need, when you are in the material world, you need to see this. Because otherwise, you will not be able to do any sadhana. You will not be able to do any purification, any progress, because you think everything is the same, so why should I bother? You know? But this is the first step. First, you start with the viveka, which is a form of duality, but it is a progressive duality. But then at the end, you know, Krishna will say it. You know, Krishna says in Gita that in the beginning, you know, you have to engage in the distinction, you know. At the end, the purpose is seeing everything as one. You overcome the duality. So the nirguna means not limited by material qualities, and saguna means full of all spiritual qualities, all the existing qualities. Everything is in the Brahman. Nothing can be outside the Brahman. If you think that the Brahman doesn't have any form, you're saying that the Brahman is missing something, is lacking something. It's not complete. So, you know, it's a contradiction in terms. It's not going, you know, it means you don't have the experience of Brahman. You know, that's why Krishna said, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Vasudeva is everything. How you can say that something is not Vasudeva? How you can say that something is not Vishnu? Something is not Brahman? No, absolutely not. But there is a difference between the kshetra and the kshetragya. It's a difference that is functional. It's not an ontological difference. It's a functional difference. So in the same way, we'll have, I think, chapter 13, if I'm not mistaken, you know, the difference between Prakriti and Purush. You know, in the end, Krishna is saying there is no difference. Oh, interesting. You know, the chapter you know, the name of the chapter means the difference between Prakriti and Purusha, and the contents of the chapter, you know, conclude there is no difference. These are the apparent contradictions, but we can definitely explain them. You know, we can explain them with examples and with direct perception. We cannot just rely on logic. You know, so buddhi is beyond the manas. That is why Krishna is talking about the buddhi yoga. So buddhi means the intelligence that is spiritual intelligence. The buddhi is still a material element, but it taps directly into the consciousness, the chit aspect of the Atman, Brahman. We know that Atman, Brahman are Sat, Chit, Ananda. Okay, Sat means existence. You know, eternal existence, constant existence, permanent existence. Chit means consciousness, awareness. The chit is not material, but the buddhi is what connects our individual consciousness with the transcendental consciousness that is a chit. I don't know if it's clear. more or less. Okay. Any I think we
Yeah, maybe we can cover those things on the Upanishads in maybe in
yeah
later calls and
okay. I think
because those
we
things are yeah,
can yes we can maybe close here because I think it's your dinner time.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think we did a couple of very dense, intense verses. If next time you want to bring these verses of the Upanishads, we can go through them. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I think yeah, that would be
useful.
nice idea.
Excellent, excellent. Okay then, to next time, next week. Ah, thanks for
Yeah.
coming. Radhe Radhe. Jai